Redditors with jobs most people don't know exist. What do you do? I used to be an E911 call tester for a large service provider in the US. Literally drive cell tower to cell tower calling 911, making sure it all routes to the correct emergency services. You'd be surprised at how many times it would fail. As someone who's tried calling 911 and repeatedly had the call fail 12 times before connecting, in the middle of a large metropolitan area and in the middle of the day, I am not surprised. As a former 911 call taker, can confirm. We receive tons of test calls from service providers. What do you say when they answer 911? What's your emergency? I used to build hiking trails. A lot of people assume they just are naturally formed or something, but that's the goal of a good trail builder. I work in a national park and I got told that building a trail can cost up to 10k per kilometer. I also heard that in other national parks, the price for 1 kilometer can go up to 40k and even higher. People don't realize that trails are actually quite a huge investment for something made out of dirt. Edit. I'm talking about Canadian dollars. Are there regulations around where and how you can build trails? I know someone that drives around the city rating the quality of each road, block by block. I do that for free. Definitely a job that doesn't exist here in Chicago. I guess we don't have them here in Turkey, or no one listens to them. I wash all the blood, globs of fat, flaps of skin, bone chips, and fecal matter off of surgical instruments. Then I assemble the instruments into sets for specific surgeries. Then I sterilize them, using either steam autoclaves or machines that utilize chemical sterilization. Then I load them up onto case carts and deliver them to the OR for the next day's scheduled surgeries. It's a hugely important job that no one even knows exists. What's your designation called? I make biological indicators that I use to test if these sterilization processes are working correctly. Do you ever use them while sterilizing? Not the only thing I did at the job, but definitely the weirdest. I worked at a grocery store last winter, right around Christmas time. I had to sprinkle dirt on the potatoes in the produce section to make them look freshly picked. Then the customers would get home and erase all my hard work. This is actually fucking interesting. I work at a grocery store too, and they'll send me around the store with basically a razor blade on a stick to peel produce stickers off the floor. Thanks, I hate it. Washing potatoes sucks. My mom is a horse braider, not a breeder but a braider. She braids horses' manes and tails for horse shows. It's quite lucrative, as people who own horses know. Everything to do with horses is expensive. As someone who rides professionally, I have to say that the entire world is extremely grateful for braiders. I hate braiding. Braiding is the worst. My job is closest to being disability support, but it's a little more specific. I'm basically paid to be my client's best friend. His disability makes him either the coolest person ever if he likes you, or the most difficult person if he doesn't. So keeping him in a good mood requires me to be like a constant hype man, and getting him pumped for the next little part of every day. And his thing is he can sniff out insincerity a mile away, which is why none of the past caregivers have worked out, so you have to genuinely enjoy hanging out with him. Which luckily I do. Not sure if this answer is on topic, but it feels like a very unique job to me. How did you get into this? That sounds like a tough job. How do you manage being a hype man full time? When my mom was in grad school, she would drive around and collect dead babies and deliver them to the med school where she worked. I'm picturing your mom knocking on random doors and asking if they have any spare dead babies. You ever wonder if you were one of the babies she picked up and on the way to the med school you started squirming and she realized you were alive and decided to raise you as her own? Does our cursor jobs exist because it should right now? So are you trying to tell us your mom was a harvester of sorrow? I'm a flavorist. We basically create or duplicate flavors using chemicals, extracts, oils, etc. Food processing destroys a lot of natural flavors, so it's our job to make sure the food tastes the way it should. That is, products that say made with real cheese taste so good because of cheese flavoring, not because there's a small amount of cheese in there. You think you know how something tastes until someone asks you to duplicate it for them. Have you ever made any new flavors? This isn't a funny one really, but I used to work in clubs venues doing lighting and other tech work. On club nights, I'd be operating the lighting rig and people would come knock on my booth window and think I'm the DJ. They, and people I'd meet to ask what I do for work, would usually say, oh, I always thought it's just a computer or something. I mean it is, but I tell it what to do. Are you saying you're a real human and not a bot? I paint corporate scenery. Corporate scenery is everywhere, but it's designed to be unobtrusive. Whenever there's a stage at a conference, or a trade show, or product release, or an ad shoot, they hire a scene shop to build and paint their specific design. For a high-profile example, my shop built and I stained the wood for the Ubisoft stage at E3 2019. Pretty much anyone can slap a coat of paint on a wall. My specific skill is needed to mix exact brand color matches, paint logos onto things, and when the work is going to be seen right up close I can do really high finish work to make it totally clean and perfect and give them the exact sheen surface quality the designer specifies. Whoa, I never gave this any thought before. That's really cool. I caption telephone calls in real time for the deaf and hard of hearing as my part-time job. I've used your service in the past for when I was doing customer service. It's really weird talking like the captioner isn't actually there. I go from mattress store to mattress store, checking that they haven't removed those tags that say do not remove under penalty of law. I'm called a federal mattress content regulation inspector. Oh, so you're a money launderer. I don't know why I am asking this, but do you have any stories of mattress hijinks? I'm a commercial diver. I do underwater construction salvage inspection. People don't think about it, but pretty much any job that requires something be done underwater we get a call. It's loads of fun and the pay is great. How do you get into that? I'm chief engineer. On a large yacht. Owned by a very wealthy man. Bob, it'd be nice of you to stop using social media and go back to maintaining my yacht. Sounds like quite the job. I'm a demand planner. My job is to make sure when you walk into a store or order online we have that specific thing you want in stock. Most jobs I've worked required us to have 95% plus product in stock at all times. Usually when we have a stock out it's because some genius decided he needed 64 hammers or 500 gallons of milk at once, screwing up the demand model. Hello sir and welcome to Adequate Store. I am a demand planner that will make sure our stocks have the item you need. So what do you need? 758 gallons of Clorox bleach right now. How many times do I have to apologize for that? It was an MC Hammer themed party and I thought it would be a good idea to release 64 hammers from the ceiling when he says stop, it's hammer time. I have paid the settlements and served my time. Must I bear this cross forever? The other day someone came in and asked if they could buy 1,000 cases of water. Our supply chain team did not like that. Not anymore, but for a while I was an ocular procurement technician. I would harvest corneas or entire globes from recently deceased people for transplant or research. Hey, my friend does this. I swear when she makes eye contact with me, she's sizing up my peepers for future profit. God, that's a terrifying title to hear. The ocular procurement technician will repossess your eyes if you can't pay. I'm a butler. I work for a marquee in the West Midlands of England in a large estate. I'm always surprised, but a lot of people didn't know it was a real job, especially Americans. I'm also fairly young and break the stereotypes that Alfred Pennyworth has set about how a butler should be. I mean, I knew it was a job, I just didn't know it still is a job today. I'm also fairly young and break the stereotypes that Alfred Pennyworth has set about how a butler should be. Are you a hipster butler? I work as a falconer, using birds of prey to keep other birds away from train tracks, airports, farms, you name it. It's like being a bird bounty hunter. I wipe down the loads and saunas. You're doing the Lord's work, friend. Loads. Of what? Edit. Yes, I know he probably means semen, but I'm really hoping he'll explain that loads is just some industry term because I don't want to think about guys masturbating in saunas. What is the spaghetti policy in your establishment? I'm a COBOL programmer. Most people don't know what COBOL is, but the ones that do probably believe it's been dead for 20 plus years. There are still several large-scale systems built on COBOL that are insanely expensive to replace. Utility customer information systems are one such area. Your meter readings, customer info, rates, and billing information. Millions of customers processing 24/7 took a huge amount of processing power back in the day. The kind that only mainframes could provide. So the systems were built in COBOL and have been customized for decades since then. The estimated cost to replace one of these systems usually starts at 100 million, and easily can get into several hundred. Needless to say, most of the utilities have been dragging their feet springing for that kind of change since it doesn't come with any extra features. Just getting onto new platforms. It is slowly getting replaced, but the people who know how to code it are retiring at a pretty good clip. I figure I've got at least 5 more years before finding another gig gets difficult. And by that point I hope to be retired, or have so many of the people around me retired that I'm in high demand for the last few spots. Is it true that COBOL devs make bank, or is it a misconception? I work at a company which will remain nameless that gets rid of commercials in sports bars and now in the home, replacing it with endless amounts of media customizable by the consumer. My job as quality control is to push a button on an iPad when ESPN, for example, switches to commercial from the program, which triggers the change in all restaurants, bars using the service. BTW, every Dave and Buster's in the nation uses our program. TLDR. I get paid to watch ESPN and push a button on an iPad. Funny story, coworker got explosive diarrhea during a tryout shift with Buffalo Wild Wings and missed numerous switches and ended up costing us what would have been our biggest client. I'm the person who argues with your insurance company that you really do need the procedure diagnostic medication your doctor ordered. Yes, the patient really needs it. No, that substitution won't do. We tried that already. We tried that too. No, we need it now. So when your doctor or nurse says we're getting that approved, unless it's a tiny clinic, it's someone like me trying to make it happen. And no, I don't always win, but I always fight for it. Edit, my first ever silver. Thank you, kind Redditor. In fact, thanks to all you guys for your kindness. You are a god. Damn. Hero. Thank you. Someone like you gave the okay for my hysterectomy, and I appreciate it. Not my current job, but I used to investigate distribution fraud. Do you wanna know how a tech company sells and ships 100,000 laptops into a random developing country with limited infrastructure? They hire a local distributor. Not surprisingly, there is a ton of fraud, bribery, tax evasion that goes down in this business. I was fresh out of college and I would have people 30 years older than me literally begging for their lives. At the time I just thought it was a normal consulting job, but sometimes when I'm telling stories at a bar and watching my friends' jaws drop, I realize just how crazy this was. You can't tease these stories and not share. Wildlife control at a major airport. I drive around with a shotgun and shoot birds all day. Does your airport do anything to deter birds from coming on the property the first place? Do you kill all birds you see? Genuinely curious about this. Work on trails. Get paid to backpack, camp, play with rocks and chainsaw. My parents always said you can't play in the mud for a living, but now I have health insurance, so take that, mom. I make virtual clothing and sell it for money on a dress-up chat game. Parks and Rec Safety Inspector. I didn't realize how many people didn't know our department is real until my recent post about it. We make sure the parks are free of safety hazards. Are you the reason all the old fun, though admittedly dangerous, playground equipment isn't around anymore? I look at pieces of tissue under the microscope to provide diagnosis on biopsies and surgical specimen. Few people know that practically all cancer diagnoses are done this way, by someone looking at the cells and going, yeah, this looks like cancer. Yeah, this looks like cancer. I too have felt this way about people while looking at their cells before. My dad is what's called a process server, otherwise known as a constable. Basically he goes around the city giving court papers to defendants, telling them that they have to appear in court on a certain date for a certain thing. For safety reasons, it's never about a crime, the police handles that, but it's usually that they're getting evicted, or they're getting a divorce, or getting sued, civil things like that. Maybe people do know about this, But what I know is that everyone I tell this to has no idea what it is. Edit. Holy shit, this is the most upvotes I've ever had on anything. Thanks. Does he also dress differently every time to not be suspicious and smoke an insane amount of weed? I work in a hospital lab. Most people assume I just draw blood. While I'm trained to draw blood, I haven't done it in over a year. I run the tests that are done in the lab and make sure the results are accurate, which requires education, reasoning skills and knowing how to work on maintain very expensive instruments since a lot of tests are moving towards automation. The lab is also who gets called whenever a nurse has questions about what results mean and what the criteria is for specimens. As a person with a chronic illness who needs regular blood tests, I thank you. I used to work at a lab in Memphis where we would perform surgical procedures on cadavers and test new medical equipment that was being developed. Saw some crazy futuristic shit. I'm involved with training people in how to survive in the event of being taken hostage. The courses are designed for people who work in hostile environments. I make recommendations to the people who make decisions on the behalf of the people looking after your pension fund. Oh, so you're some kind of sexy spy from Sweden? I used to work at Cambridge Analytica. Now my job is to enforce NDAs, protect data and find ways to contact senators that could be influenced. I correct video games. The job title is LQA tester, localization quality assessment. It's called localization because I mostly test translated games and retranslate some parts if they aren't translated correctly. I'm quite literally a game tester, but I only test the text and sometimes I'm a translator. I work in IT distribution. Think, the middleman. Most people think that your local mom and pop stores, and even Best Buy, get their products direct from vendors like Sony, Cisco, or even Ruckus. This isn't the case, they get it from distributors. I love my job. I get to work directly with business owners to sell all sorts of IT products. I even get to wheel and deal with pricing. I work direct with the vendors as well, often on behalf of the business. I ride horses professionally. You think horses are born knowing how to carry a human and do fancy tricks? Haha, think again. Idiots like me teach them how. I do a lot of different things at my job, but one of the big things is that I build GPS models for earth-moving construction equipment. I think a lot of people are aware that bulldozers and the like can use GPS now, but not a lot of people realize the effort that goes into determining exactly what those machines will grade. It's a lot of fun. Title research. Anytime someone buys real estate, we research the history to make sure there aren't any liens that will affect new loans on the property. If you've bought real estate, our fees are just a line item figured into the closing costs that you never notice. Watchmaker, as in actually making. No, I don't change batteries or sell you bracelets. I assemble mechanical watches and do the setup on complications like dates or turbulence. A less thought of job. I serve food to people living in a retirement home. Wholesome ass job, and the residents, old folks, are really nice. This is different than your average old folks home where they treat the residents terribly. We treat them as they should be. Edit. I did not mean to say that all old folk homes treat residents terribly, but I've heard a lot about ones around my area that are pretty bad to the residents. I build zip lines. I work in student affairs. We're basically the non-academic side of a university or college, housing, admissions, advising, student life, diversity and inclusion, Greek life, conduct Title IX, etc. They are central parts of the environment at a higher education institution, but it's amazing how many people are surprised when they learn that it's an actual profession to work and that you can also get a degree for. I'm a hall director. And 99% of the time I tell people about my job, they only hear the university part, then ask if I'm a professor. As a hall director, I hire, train, advise, and supervise RAs, as well as oversee and manage operations of my assigned residential complex. I handle all the student conduct that occurs in the area, look for report facilities issues, maintain community building, mediate roommate-student issues, advise students, manage the area's programming and budgets. I also have an on-call rotation I share with the other hall directors, where I would have to take all calls incidents that happen outside of business hours. We're also responsible for baseline mental health help, such as meeting with suicidal and depressed students and referring them appropriately. There seems to be some kind of disconnect even when students and parents come to a campus, where they don't piece together that these people are actually trained professionals that never set foot inside a classroom. It's actually a running joke in the field, with some truth to it, that most in the field do not discover it as a career path until their final year of undergrad, usually by working at the university and being approached by a supervisor about going into the profession. I worked in admissions as a tour guide in undergrad, and in my last year my supervisor asked if I would be interested in a career for it. It didn't even occur to me until that moment that my supervisor is a trained professional who got her master's degree to be in the position she was in. I'm a cartographer, and yes, there are lots of other maps required in the world besides Google. I make movie reels with a fiber optic laser. I also make the hardware for barn doors. I used to work for a football team and my job was to watch matches and count stats such as passes, shots, time in attacking third and possession percentage. I would also gather data from GPS systems that the team would wear and create graphs which show player workload throughout the match. Not me, but lots of people I know. In the dog show world, top winning dogs aren't usually handled by their regular owners, but by pro handlers who travel the country to show. They usually have regularly paid assistants but also are frequently accompanied by junior handlers, kids under 18 who compete in junior showmanship. These kids leave home for months at a time and do school on the road to travel with handlers as an assistant. Usually these kids are competing to be the top junior handler in their breed or group. The kicker is that we can't be paid as an assistant since AKC rules state that juniors have to maintain amateur status to compete, although often the handler they work for will pay them by paying for their show entries, and room and board are free. I work at a casino as an event coordinator. We plan and organize all of our giveaways, tournaments, concerts, etc. Basically marketing, doing stuff to get people to come to our casino, and to keep playing. Most of the time when I tell people I work in a casino they think I'm a card dealer. Essentially I watch TV all day. It's actually digital archiving of old videotape, but it's for major networks who have massive tape libraries of stuff like Beta, VHS, U-matic, 1 inches and 2 inches tape and anything else in between. All the old magnetic tape is starting to expire, so they ship pallets of tapes to the company I work for and we record them in real time then send back the files. It takes years to completely digitize a tape library. Some of our older big clients have been sending us pallets every month consistently for the past 5 years, and there's still roughly another 5 years left. It's pretty interesting, and I never knew about it before getting into the field, so if anyone has any questions I'll be happy to answer.